vendors, we have charged the same fee on everything, which is very low. So I will be asking council to approve a rate increase for our tows and for our daily storage to possibly go into effect July 1st. So we'll be looking for sponsors for that, but hopefully I will have that prepared for next council meeting.
Okay. Put me down for a sponsor. Thank you. Anyone else? Jacob?
Motion to adjourn finance.
Second.
Got a motion by Jacob and a second by Bob to adjourn finance. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Finance committee meeting is adjourned. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thing for us. Absolutely.
Are you gonna be here tonight? No.
Council meeting of April 14th, 2022. Joining us for tonight for our invocation, we have Pastor Rick Sturgill with Real Life Ministries. If you please stand for our invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance immediately following.
pray. Father, we remember that tomorrow is Good Friday. Remember the pain and suffering of the cross and all that you endured. And you paid that price for us, that great sacrifice to allow us the gift of eternal life. Help us to never take for granted this huge gift of love on our behalf. Help us to be reminded of the cost of it all. Forgive us, Lord, for being too busy or distracted by other things, for not fully recognizing what you freely gave, for what you've done for us. Father, we thank you that by your wounds we are healed. Thank you, Lord, because of your huge sacrifice that we can live freely. Thank you, Lord, that the sin and death have been conquered, that your power is everlasting. And we thank you, Lord, that we can say with great hope, it is finished. For we know what's still to come, but death has lost its sting. We praise you, Father, this evening for making all things new. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, sir. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please, Laura.
Cleary.
Here.
Hany.
Here.
Harvey. Pop.
Here.
Vaughn.
Here?
Barry.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Council member Harvey, he said this in the last meeting and also verified last night that he was, had prior engagement with his kids' baseball, junior high baseball, so he would not be here. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the regular council meeting of March 24th, 2022, the Finance Committee meeting of March 24th, 2022, the Finance Committee meeting of April 6th, 2022, and the special meeting of April 6th, 2022. Do we have any edits, additions, omissions to those minutes? Those minutes will stand as approved. Next, we have audience participation. If you'd like to approach the podium and address any concerns or comments you have for council, you will have 5 minutes to address those concerns.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Cleary. My address is 1742 North 2nd Street. For transparency, I would like to state that I am in no way related to Councilman Cleary. I'm here this evening as a citizen of Ironton and as a community events planner. On December 23rd, 2021, this council passed Ordinance 21-66, establishing registration requirements for residential homes and imposing a $10,000 per day fine for noncompliance after 30 days of issuance. To date, 24 homes have been registered and 0 fines have been issued or collected. On January 17th, 2022, Council passed Ordinance 22-01, creating necessary inspections and fees for food trucks and declaring an emergency. This ordinance requires food trucks to pay a $50 application fee and a $250 fire inspection fee. I'm all for fire safety. However, the state fire code pertaining to food trucks was updated in 2017, and now, a few months before food truck season starts, we place this burden on these small businesses. It is my opinion that this ordinance is less about fire safety and more about city tax revenue. I would like for us to consider an alternative plan of action. To my friends at the fire department, I have the utmost admiration and appreciation for all that you do for this community, and I do understand the importance of fire safety. Please know that these next few statements are in no way directed at you. I do not understand singling out small business food trucks by imposing a $300 fee for their inspection when there is no charge for a fire inspection for a brick and mortar restaurant. I also do not understand why, if our fire department needs upgrades to their life-saving equipment, our city's solution is to fund it $300 at a time, when $300 won't even cover the cost of one set of fire boots. There's a better way to handle this, and it begins with seeing the benefits of having food trucks in our community. These trucks provide unique and fresh food options. They bring a following from other cities. They support our community. Fat Boy Q's name is on the back of some T-ball uniforms, and they have a potential to become a brick and mortar restaurant in our city. The burden of this ordinance is not only affecting food trucks, it's having a direct effect on those of us working hard to plan community events. Events like Granny's 420 Block Party, St. Joe's Charity Fair, Third and Center Summer Solstice, the Ohio River Revival, and Wizard Fest. All of these events rely heavily on food vendors to be successful. These out-of-town trucks cannot afford the inspection fee, plus an event fee, plus all of the upgrades required by code. I'll speak to the Summer Solstice event. As an event coordinator, I cannot invite 1,000 guests to a day-long event on our riverfront if we do not have a way to feed them. If we cannot feed them, we cannot in good conscience serve them beer or wine slushies. The beverage tent is set up to be one of our biggest fundraising efforts at this event. Those funds are used to do community projects like flood wall murals, cover graffiti on the over and underpass, set up youth art programs, and so much more. Almost all of these events I mentioned are free community events, designed for not only people of our town, but for people of the region to experience and see what our town has to offer. And now I'd like to propose a solution. I've always advocated for a business license, and this seems like one of those two birds, one stone kind of opportunities. Instituting a license to operate a business in the city would allow our fire and police forces to have a record of who is conducting business in our city and where, and it would give our tax department a nice list to go by come April. What if our system was tiered so small businesses could afford it and larger companies like those running group residential homes would pay more? What if these group homes paid $2,000 per year for a business license? That's $48,000 alone, and that would buy a few nice pieces of fire equipment. And what if the group homes paid $3,000 a year and the city took $15,000 of that and set it aside as a small business incubation fund to provide micro loans to entrepreneurs like our food truck friends that might need a $3,000 fire suppression system installed on their trucks to get them up to code? What if Ironton became so food truck friendly that we started attracting truck owners to move here? I mean, why wouldn't they want to? We are in a prime tri-state location with a huge demand for trucks at events. We are capable of so much. We have so many young entrepreneurs in the city and region, but we have to stop stifling them at every turn. Let's encourage our small businesses to flourish and approach our community with a mindset of abundance. There is absolutely enough business to go around, and we need to foster an environment of collaboration over competition. Thank you.
Mrs. Perry, ma'am. Just for transparency and just for clarification, now the food truck ordinance, I didn't go as to having a lot to do with the language of the ordinance per se, but what was discussed is council as a whole looked at many cities' food truck ordinances, and a lot of those are thousands of dollars. Now, we didn't think it was fair when we were the preliminary discussions of this. We didn't think it was fair to charge thousands of dollars. Yeah, so we came up with a decent number. And I think, you know, if you're here setting up shop for an entire year, I don't necessarily think $3,000 is an extravagant amount of money, considering, you know, what brick and mortars pay for their, they have to pay utility bill, they have to pay property taxes, they have to pay this and that. And that was another reason why council got together at the time and proposed this, is because brick and mortars were coming to council members with a complaint like, what are we doing letting these food trucks come in and they pay nothing to the city, nothing to this, nothing to that, but they're taking our business away and we are paying this, and this. Okay, so we tried to set up a good faith effort to make, you know, each side happy. You know, we didn't want to, we want food trucks in here, but we had to have some type of, you know, structure for them to come in, do this, do that, and everybody's good with it. Now, I don't think you're saying we're buying fire department equipment with that. I don't think that fee's necessarily for fire department equipment. I think, you know, our fire department is funded well.
That's how your ordinance reads, that the $300 will be used for fire equipment replacement.
Replacement, that's a
Yeah.
fund that a lot of stuff goes into for fire equipment replacement. That's when we go to, when we take in anything, when they do a demolition or something, most of the time that money goes into fire equipment replacement. So we can fund things like that. But that's not necessarily, I mean, we're not trying to buy like boots with that. That's just paying our fire department for their time to do this. Another thing is, you know, I didn't understand the correlation between the drug rehab reference and the food truck reference.
Sure, my point being that you all have passed this ordinance as a fire safety ordinance, when in actuality, your concern is the brick and mortar's complaint over tax revenue. So you're saying it's for fire safety, when in essence, it's for tax reasons. And my problem is that brick and mortars are not charged a fire inspection fee. So to charge a food truck a fire inspection fee to operate in our city is unjust, and fire safety should be all of our concern. So my correlation is that we have multiple times in council identified these residential group homes as a burden on our community. You all tried to remedy that by taxing them so that we could identify them. If our city blanketly had a business licensing system in place so that if you want to work a business, operate a business in our city, first you have to come here and let us know what you're planning on doing. Then you have a registration of who's operating in your city. Then you also have a registry of who should be paying taxes in our city. So my point being that we should have a structured business license in place, and the top tier would be the people operating the residential, because I think we can all agree that cool, there's 24 here, but we don't want city blocks upon city blocks of these. So this is a way for us to set these standards in place. Do you understand?
Thank you. I think you and I discussed, this has been a couple years back, and this was pre-COVID, I believe, a business registry.
I want a business license as revenue for the city. This, I mean, you're talking, if these guys, that's $50,000. That's someone's salary.
I agree. But I agree with you, because not only does that make it easier for us, it makes it easier for everybody to know who's in charge of what, who should be getting taxed.
Right, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're fine, go ahead.
And then that solves your problem of so now your food trucks have to have a business license. Ashland does this. If you're set up, you have to pay the city tax based on your sales. So this solves your brick and mortars, whatever I have to say that I do very much feel like that is a lack mindset. These trucks are not taking away from business in our town, and I will stand here and say that every single day if I have to. They are doing nothing but adding and showing our citizens other food options. These guys offer homemade stuff. This stuff and ingredients and food restrictions that there is no restaurant in the city that offers something that's vegan. Unless you want a salad with a lemon squeezed on top. So these are the types of things that food trucks are bringing in. And as an event coordinator, if I can't pull trucks from multiple cities, I can't have events.
I agree. And another thing, and like I said, I wasn't really necessarily super involved towards the end of this legislation. But one thing that was talked about and discussed was a tiered system, like you're saying, like a one-day licensure and a weekend 3-day licensure, something like that. So I truthfully think that we can handle that fairly quickly, because I'm sorry, but I agree with what you're saying, is it should be, if you're coming in for a festival or a one-day event or whatever, there should be a system set up to do that. So I don't think that would be anything extraordinary, that we can do fairly easy.
Or the event coordinator should be able to pull a permit. We have to file a permit anyway with the city, and then, because a lot of events will charge these food trucks to come in, like say their vendor fee is $200 for the day. Well, that's money that the organization that's hosting the event counts towards their fundraising goals. You see what I'm saying?
So what are you saying? Incorporated in, I mean,
I'm saying that I listed 5 community events.
right.
That, so maybe those are, you know, if it's a registered community event and they're having food trucks, then you get the pass for the day because you're there for that event. You're an invited guest of the city for the day. Any other time, dude, just set up on the corner. Yes, if you don't have a business license, then get your stuff in order and do it the right way. I agree with the, you know, weekend pass or whatever so that people can come and see if our market is a good fit for their truck. And if it is, then okay, then file your 1-year license. The city of Ashland has a great food truck or a vendor permit system in place that we could look at and model after.
So you're saying no fee on people coming in for a weekend or a day? Or
Special event by invitation of a registered permit holder. I have to pull a permit to have an event, right?
So should it be passed on to the event, you know, sponsors or whatever?
You want to charge me
No, I
to
don't,
have
but what I'm saying is
1,000
there's-
people come to our city?
No, but there's city services that are gonna be used, you know, and I think that was the purpose of this ordinance was to, you know, it is, you know, it is what it is.
And I think that you could chalk those up to a travel and tourism offset.
Mr. Perry.
Thank you, Ms. Cleary. I appreciate you and everything that you had to say. The thing that you said that really popped for me was whatever the vehicle is, using that as seed money for a small business incubator. I really like that idea, and I think if anybody sits and looks at it, it's an automatic reciprocal solution to things because the small business incubator, just by definition of the term. So however that happens, I applaud you there. I've spoken to several people about how we can get that going in Ironton. There's several different ideas, but I do appreciate you mentioning that as part of your solutions.
Thank you.
Nate?
I want to thank you for taking the time to come up here and speak. I voted and I was supportive of this, and it was purely for safety reasons. And here's why the dollar amounts in my mind made sense. I believe the brick and mortar fire inspection is done by the state fire marshal, and that is a $50 fee. So I feel like that would offset the time for our fire inspector to inspect those areas of the trucks. Additionally, a brick and mortar store, the services that they would use and pay on the utility bill would be the fire and safety municipal fee, which would cover police and fire protection. So that, I believe that's going to be around, I would say $200, $250 a year-ish. So that's why I was supportive of that. If those services were ever needed by our police and fire are there to protect them and our residents in our community. So that's why I'm in favor of it, and I'm standing behind it because I think that is vital. At the same time, I can get behind you also if someone's not here year-round and they're not using those services year-round, like that 12 months of municipal, then I agree. I think there should be something temporary, and I would love to talk that out, discuss that with you, and try to come up with some solutions.
Sure, thank you for
Okay.
that.
And I'd be happy to work with the mayor also if he has some ideas on how that could look. I'd be happy to sponsor something to remedy that and make that look the way we need for our community.
I would like to make just one quick point though. Two of the food trucks that you see operating in our city the most, especially with the season coming up, are both residents of Ironton, property owners, and tax-paying citizens of this town. So to then impose, they're already paying a water bill,
You
and
could
their
say-
business is their food truck is parked at their residence.
You could say the same thing about somebody that lives in Ironton and has a store down the street. They're paying too. They're
Right.
paying for that property and having that property paid for. So if, you know what I'm trying to say?
I do, but it's a slippery slope with me, Mr. Klein, because then you look at the businesses and the buildings downtown that don't have water service operating to them, or vacant buildings that are owned by these property landlords. if that building catches on fire, they might not have water service to it, but I guarantee the fire department's gonna come put that out for them to protect the buildings around it. So
Those-
I understand what you're saying.
Those properties are charged for being vacant, have a vacant registry, they should be paying, and they are charged on their utility bill for those services, municipal, flood, everything's being used. It's a vacant account, so they are being charged for that, and they are being charged for fire and police services.
Thank
So,
you.
now, your second point, as far as the business license, you brought that up, I'm gonna say maybe 2 years ago-ish.
Correct.
I was in favor of that then, I'm in favor of it now, I'd like to have that discussion again. At the time, it didn't have enough legs to get the paper. This is where it is, there wasn't enough support for that. I would love to revisit that and talk about that and how that could work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If, that sounds like a strategic planning meeting to me. We could invite and set this up sometime soon, because I'm in favor. I get what you're saying, I really do. And sometimes you just have to try to make everybody happy, you know what I'm saying? And you can't always do that.
That's right.
And, we try our best, and I think we all have good intentions on this, and I don't think, we're not trying to kill anybody. We're just trying to do what we can, but, are you strategic?
Yeah.
We could have a strategic plan about this business registry. He'd have to call it, but we could invite you as a guest and anybody you want to bring along, because I'd like to hear what everybody has to say about this and have business input on this as well. But like Nate said, we've talked about it, and I'd like to see it come to fruition. COVID, I think, is on the downslope, and, I think we're getting back to normal, hopefully, and so I think that was one reason that kind of slowed the ball on that, but Jacob can call it, we can invite you as a guest, and if you want to bring some other people, that'd be great. Nate,
I would attend that meeting also. The temporary, if you want to get with the mayor and Jeff Joseph, as far as possible ideas for a temporary or 3-day or whatever you might have in mind, and draft something, I'd be happy to review it, and if it looks good, then I'd sponsor it
Thank you.
going forward.
Pertaining to food trucks?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If it's appropriate, I'd like to call the Commercial and Industrial Committee into that as well. It's a joint.
sounds good. We can do that. So we hear you, and we're willing to do whatever we can to make this thing work. I like food trucks myself, so.
Thank you. Appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
My name is Jim Chorda, 2738 South 11th Street in Ironton. David, could I talk you into propping that up on that ledge over there?
Where do you want
See if it'll sit on that ledge.
it? Yep.
And this is just a copy of that. And it's just, and Marta, there's one for you. If you could, I would appreciate that going into the minutes. And I want to reiterate what I did a couple of weeks ago. I'm not here to cause you guys any problems. I appreciate the job you're doing. I know how tough it is. And it's just that spending 30 years down here as either the assistant finance director or the finance director or a councilman or the mayor, I just have a real interest in the city's finances. And I appreciate some of you guys, Nate and Bob and Craig's not here, appointing me a few years ago. I really enjoyed that. So I want to stress, I'm not wanting to make your guys' lives more difficult in any way. It's just that 2 years ago, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, 2 years ago when I was appointed, we all agreed, based on John's numbers. These numbers on the 5-year forecast for the general fund are not my figures, they're John's. And I don't want to leave John out of that equation. I think the city of Ironton, I've said this for years and I still say it, is lucky to have John. John's right on top of things, and the time that I got back on council, I just appreciated him more than I can say. So all I'm saying is that 2 years ago, we all sat here and everybody agreed, all 7 people and the mayor, that based on the 5-year forecast, it looked like things were going to be catastrophic, especially in the general fund. That we were spending more than we're bringing in, and we all agreed that we needed to have some kind of game plan. We were going to, there's several of us came up with plans and put them on the ballot and went up to Ohio University and tried to explain to the public, because we wanted to be proactive rather than reactive, because we thought that we were really heading the wrong direction. These figures from September, the most recent, and I know that there's a new forecast coming out. I've been talking with John quite a bit. But the most recent figures is all we can go by. And it shows that in 2022 of this year, that the general fund is projected to spend about $880,000 more than it brings in. And that next year, we would spend about $995,000 more than we bring in, just in the general fund. And that in 2024, we would spend about $1,201,000 more than we bring in. And in 2025, we would spend about $1,408,000 more than we bring in the general fund. And that the 5th year of the forecast, we'd spend about $1.6 million more than we bring in. So that after those 5 years, if something wasn't done, we would be out of whack in the general fund by over $6 million. And I recognize that we can't go into the red because of the charter, but these are the figures just showing the projections. Now, what's changed? From my talking with John and reading in the paper and other avenues like that, it seems like the only thing that's really changed is that we have gotten COVID monies, and I'm familiar with those from working up at school. And I know that the government's been more lenient than originally, that they can be used for, originally they had to go for PPE and other legitimate COVID related expenses, and that now they're moderating that. But we also know that it's a windfall. It's not something that's going to be in the city's annual revenue, you know, subsequently. So all I'm saying is, and I know that the forecast is going to change, you know, and I know from what Nate was talking about with the CPI index legislation that went in, that that's going to help out some. But I also know that probably the forecast, John, we haven't had a chance to talk about this, but there's going to be things go up too, like fuel in the police department. And I don't know how the 5-year forecast is going to be corrected, but I would doubt that it's going to be $6 million.
Mr. Elon, in the past 2 years, did we have, or we were in the black the last 2 years, correct at the end of this? Okay. Nate?
Well, can I finish while I got my train
Well,
of
we got
thought?
5 minutes, Mr. Torrey.
Could I have Chuck O'Leary's
That
5
has to be
minutes?
voted on.
Mr. Haney, could I, for my 5 minutes, please?
Yeah, it has to be voted on, yes.
Well, there is, yeah, the president.
Nate?
I'll make a motion to give Chuck, Jim Chuck's 5 minutes.
I'll second that.
Second,
All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Go ahead, Mr. Torrey.
Thank you. I know that that's probably going to be the amount of money that's been spent out of the COVID monies that would have been general fund expenses is going to be a help. But my point is that's a windfall. Just like, and I appreciate the comment Nate made 2 weeks ago, or however long ago it was, that the general fund's in the best shape that it's been in the last 5 years. I can appreciate that, but I think that's primarily because we've been able to take what would have been general fund expenses in the past and take them out of those COVID monies, so that it skews the health of the general fund. Because we've been in the balance, because the general fund has been in the black, I guess I'm saying, Chris, the last several years, which it has to be by charter, I understand that fully, doesn't eliminate that in the future, unless the forecast is severely wrong, unless those numbers are just severely wrong and inaccurate. And John's always pointing out, and rightfully so, that it's an estimate. But I doubt, and if the numbers are wrong, I'll be the first one to say, great. You know, if the revenue is enough to take care of the annual expenses for the general fund, problem solved. But with my background, I'd have to see that. I doubt that we're going to really have a forecast that's going to make up $6 million over 5 years. Would you agree with that, John?
Yes, and I will be able to answer that better and more
Right.
fully detailed
Right.
within the next 2 weeks.
Right. Again, all I'm saying is that it appears as though that we have a serious problem with general fund revenues not meeting general fund expenses. And Mayor, I want to say, having had your job before, I don't think it's because there's frivolous spending going on. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that since all of the industry left Ironton 30 or 40 years ago, we've never been able to rebuild a tax base that would take care of the general fund expenses. And it's not because of frivolous spending. It's simply because of the numbers. But when health care goes up every year, and with all of the things in the general fund, with the police and fire department, the biggest departments in the general fund, it just doesn't add up. And I'm just saying, I think the city needs to have a plan. Is it to raise more revenue, or is it to cut expenses, or is it a combination of? I'm just, as a citizen now, and I have no interest in getting back involved. If you're thinking that I'm coming trying to run for council or something, that's the last thing I would do. I'm just genuinely concerned that we're spending a substantial amount of money more, just like we were 2 years ago. And once the beginning balances that allows us to do that are eliminated, it's going to leave us with a serious problem that we ought to be proactive about it now rather than reactive.
Nate?
Jim, I appreciate it. You know, I know you always have a love and a concern for the city, and you point out things, and you're very detailed minded. So I appreciate that. I have a lot of respect for you. I know you have a lot of experience in government, accounting, public finance, both city and schools. I do want to touch on a few things. I believe the 5-year forecast is a conservative, and I believe school districts do the same thing, right? We want to be conservative.
Any good
going
accountants
into,
want to
right?
estimate revenue low and
And
expenses high.
And I think
agree.
that's where we are. So I want to point out a couple things as far as the general fund. Over the last when I came in 5 years ago, we were robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? We had almost a negative balance in the general fund, to the point where we built that up to the best we've had. Over the last 5 years, we've had, if you look at our income tax line, income tax revenues increased, I would say, over $700,000 over in the 5-year period. And that's not by an increase in income tax rate, that's by an increase in income tax pays, okay? That's the direction I think we need to go into, and I think that's what we have committed to as a city. I'm hoping to see additional development, additional housing for income taxpayers, so that those income tax revenues will continue to increase. As far as revenues, addressing revenues, we are continuing the discussion as far as the CPI increase and what that's going to look like initially, okay? But I think everybody agrees that moving forward, we need that to be in place. Right now, CPI is 8.5%, correct, John? Is that what it says in March? Okay, so we have to have revenues that are going to offset these increasing prices. You're correct on that, okay? So if we did 7.5% of our municipal fee increase, that's an additional $200,000 that would bring in for the general fund, okay? And then I think some of the expenses, again, are conservative. For example, we had, John usually budgets, John, I don't know if you can quote, health insurance increase is probably, what do you have, 7.5%? 8%, okay? We had a better renewal this year than anticipated, okay? So we have some of those things that are kind of offset some of those increases in expenses also. I think overall, and I know the forecast shows this, I think overall, in the last 5 years, we've shown, not just with the COVID dollars that's there, I think we're showing overall revenue increases compared to what we've forecasted also. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I think with the CPI, it's going to look different as far as your revenues and expenses and that deficit with it. So I will.
I'm sorry.
So I feel like if the CPI goes through, and that goes through annually, John's going to have an opportunity for revenues, okay, to be able to increase those. Because if you look on the 5-year forecast, he has municipal fee, okay? Those revenues are flatline for the next 5 years, okay? Another thing, general properties tax and real estate, okay? He has those baseline for the 5 years. So he has no projection of increase in revenues, okay? And the income tax, like I said, is lower than what we've seen in the last 5 years. So it's conservative is what I'm trying to say, okay? I think we're gonna see higher property tax rate, not rates, but revenues based on increased property values. And with the CPI, it's gonna offset a lot of that. So, and again, like I said in the last meeting, I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you and dive into it. But there's no doubt that it has to be addressed with that CPI.
Oh, that's
Okay.
And nothing would make me happier than if the numbers would take care of themselves. I'd be tickled to death. Who wants to add more burden to the taxpayers, the citizens?
Agreed.
Nobody wants to do that.
I agree.
I'm
Yes.
just saying that having lived through it, and believe it or not, I'll wake up at nights thinking about this. That's the absolute truth. And maybe that's old age creeping up on me, and I'm not.
I do the same thing, man. My wife says, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah, I'm not a councilman, but when it's in your blood, when you've been a part of it for 30 years, Bob, I'm sure you can appreciate that. You've been on here just as long as I have. It's hard to get off your mind. And what I keep thinking about is, I don't know, Chuck, 20, 30 years ago, or however long it was, Chuck and I was on council and we had the same feeling about the city back then. And he and I are the ones that came up with the municipal fee idea. There was no municipal fee back then. It was just city income tax. And unfortunately, we couldn't get 4 votes on council. And I made presentations like this trying to show where I thought the city was going to be without some more revenue or cutting expenses. Luckily, the council, after I left, and I think Chuck was still on, they did go along with it, and they put the municipal fee on, which made a lot of people mad. I understand that. But my point is, where would the city be right now without that municipal fee in place? I mean, it would be catastrophic. So, again, and I'm ready to sit down, I hope the new forecast comes out and it shows that revenues have been estimated too low and expenses have been estimated too high. But what I'm afraid of, I've just got that feeling in my stomach that not only the COVID monies, but we've had one-time monies in workers' comp reimbursements, also, that would have made the revenue come back down some of those years. I hope that I'm wrong. I really do. I hope that it takes care of itself. But I would just hope that you guys now would have a plan in place early that if it doesn't end up being that, here's what we think the best thing to do is. Because,
Here's the.
well, before I forget my train of thought, just give me 30 seconds.
30 more seconds.
Because what I equate it out to is, if you and your wife have a personal budget, and she loses her job. But you guys go on with your same monthly expenses. You go out to eat, you keep the cable TV, you do everything just like you always did. And every month you go into your savings account and pull out the amount that she was making and combine it with your paycheck. There's a day of reckoning when the savings account's over. And that I equate out to when we use our beginning balances to make things balance. If we're not really on top of things, it can be a problem.
Okay. The thing about it is, and I see why you and John get along so well, because you guys are extremely conservative with numbers and things like that. John's extremely conservative, you're extremely conservative. Now, you said that the only thing that you've seen is COVID, ARPA funds, right? The thing about this is there's extreme savings, millions of dollars in savings in our ABM Solutions contract. You didn't mention RCAP, which is a total revamp of the water filtration, water distribution.
Now, this is general fund I'm talking about.
You also didn't mention the income tax increases, as Nate said. Also, we've passed the hotel tax revenues, and I mean, things are looking up. Like I said, it's not just, ARPA funds coming in and, oh, it's free, no. We've thought this through, and we've spent or are looking to spend the funds that we have gotten from COVID extremely frivolous and frugal. But I think John can tell you is we've bought some much needed items that previous councils did not buy. So we're not borrowing and we're not getting in a pinch. We're not paying as much overtime to some departments because of the equipment that we've purchased. So if you're saying, we've made some purchases, but it's purchases to make the city more efficient. So I know what you're saying. You always had me worried when I came up here. I mean, I'm serious. But when you were up here trying to explain it, I was like, what in the world's going on? But I think everybody's working together on these solutions, and like Nate said, we're going to figure out CPI and the best way to go about that, because like Nate stated, is everything's going to go up. There's no sense to punch everybody in the gut every 3 or 4 years and say, oh, $5. No, but if we can do it gradually along with the rate of things going up, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
We're in discussions on that and find the best way to do that. I think there's a lot of good things going on in terms of economic development. So, we're looking at even further income tax increases. So, like I said, I think John's estimates are very conservative. So, I try to, John, I appreciate your work, but I take his forecast sometimes, and look at it a little bit further myself.
And I hope it works out. I'm sincere as I can be when I say I hope it works out. But what goes through my mind is John standing up here a couple of years ago and saying, I'm putting you all on notice.
But we were supposed to be in the red this year, correct? Like last year.
Well,
that was like 3 or 4 years ago, and we were supposed to be in the red like last year.
No.
So, yeah.
If you look at the 5-year forecast, it wasn't going to be in the red in 2021. But my only point is, and I think that there is some conservatism. I'm worried that it's not to the tune of what we're looking at. And again, I'll end it by saying, I hope I'm wrong. I really do.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Any other items of participation? Mr. Roach?
All right, how's it going? I'm D'Angelo Roach. I am a resident of Ironton. I also operate the food truck in town, Fat Boy Q. So just kind of piggybacking off of what Amanda said, and just kind of hearing some more things that went into the ordinance. I just one thing like me and Amanda have in common is just the well-being of the city and just being able to attract more businesses to our area and being able to hold different events like so many towns and counties that I've experienced. Just like we're going to come up on our 1-year anniversary on April 20th. So just going into different counties, just seeing how, welcoming and easy it is sometimes to do business in other counties. I just want to keep everybody to at least have that same idea in mind whenever these different ordinances are passing, and there may not be somebody here like myself to speak on those behalf. With the food truck thing, one thing that's nice about that is it's a new industry. In Ironton, we talk to the older generation, and everybody's still talking about how the good old days was. All the Malibu, all Cabletron, all Ironton Iron. Those industries are gone, and they're not coming back. You know what I mean? But one thing that is exciting to everybody is food trucks. It's a new industry that's coming into this area. It gives people like myself and other people of the community to be able to have the opportunity to start a food business or some other different type of mobile business that you have to have brick and mortar for. And another thing is, Ironton, they don't really have that many commercial properties available to do everything that you want to do. Like, for instance, one of my food truck friends, Dragonfly Cafe, they're originally started in Greenup, but then they came over here wanting to start a brewery. They couldn't find the right building and places to do that. So then the city of Ironton lost a brewery. We could potentially have a brewery in this town, and we lost that to downtown Russell. Like, how does that happen? Like, how does Ironton want to be more welcoming and be more of a tourist area, and then we lose the opportunity to have a microbrewery? That's another thing that's popping up in town. So it's just like the commercial real estate that we have can't suit everything that everybody wants to do. I'll use another commercial residence, for instance. Just as this year process has been going along, we've been growing, and people have been reaching out, wanting us to come to their cities. The mayor of Ashland, we do business in Ashland about twice a week, and it's become like our second home. The mayor of Ashland coming to our truck, talking to us, wanting us to come into what used to be the Blazers building that they just put a restaurant in, Sal's Speakeasy Italian restaurant. That would have been nice for Ironton to have something like that, but that building there was like $250,000, and it was turnkey. And then we have this other building that we looked at in downtown Ironton across from Rich Gas Station. It used to be Norm's Produce. Ain't been nothing in there for 20 years. And they're asking $275, and the building needs to be tore down. You know what I mean? Like that is what Ironton is competing with. So anytime that we put any type of ordinances in place for maybe a handful of brick and mortar restaurants that think, these culinary pirates are out here making up all the money, there's also a lot of opportunity for us to collab with other businesses, being a mobile restaurant that will make the city a better place. Like our first day of business was with Granny's Novelty down on 5th and Vine. And was that y'all's first year for that event? Second year for that event. Turned out to be a phenomenal thing for Fat Boy Q, and a phenomenal moment of excitement, for local business owners in the community. We had a line down the street. It was a real good feeling. It inspired a couple other people that day to go out on social media and be like, what, this is inspiring. I think I might want to start me a food truck. So it's not just me and my partners at Fat Boy Q doing anything. We're trying to inspire the community, inspire younger generations, do different collabs with other businesses. We've had multiple fundraisers that we've done, 2 with Ironton High School. We've done a couple with St. Joe. We've set up at Ironton football games in the OU parking lot, and then donated some proceeds that we did at the end of the year to the football program. So just different things like that Ironton can do to make the city better and more welcoming, and just, like I said, just generate something, because it's been stagnant like my whole life. Like businesses are leaving and they're not coming back, and we have, you know, these. The only thing that seems to be growing in this area is the rehabs. You know, they're like popping up like dandelions. It almost seems like. So I just, you know.
Mr. Perry?
Mr. Roach, I want to thank you for coming out, having this conversation with us, and as you may recall, the meeting that you and your partner, Mr. Williams, and I had a month or so ago. Thank you for investing in Ironton, first and foremost. Everybody sitting here, everybody in the room knows that you could have set up camp anyplace else. Ashland's exciting, Huntington's exciting, but you guys are homegrown. You decided to, you know, invest in the city, so thank you for that. I want to make sure that you understand, and anybody else that happens to see this later understands that when we passed this legislation, it was not intended to be a deterrent at all. We want everybody to understand that we are for economic growth in this city. We understand it's the only way the city's going to survive. The conversation that Mr. Klein just had with Mr. Tortiv all revolves around economic growth. I mean, you know, none of this happens if Ironton can't survive and thrive. So these conversations that we had that led to the passage of the legislation, they weren't quick conversations. They weren't easy conversations. We knew going in that there'd be acceptance on one side and pushback on the other. It's the unfortunate nature of the beast that we have to make difficult decisions sometimes, and we just wanted to make sure that you understand it wasn't designed to put any extra burden on any businesses. I mean, I've watched you guys grow just over the past year,
Right.
And I venture to say, I'm not speaking for you, but I would venture to say that these kind of fees are probably, to some degree, even less impactful to your business than it would some other smaller
Correct.
outfit, because you guys have it together.
Right.
I mean,
And most mobile food trucks, you know, it's a seasonal thing. So
Right.
they're only operating from April or May to maybe September or something.
That's the conversation we had.
As opposed to us, this first year we was out here in December. You seen us out there; it was 20 degrees outside. we're trying to make some barbecue because you know what I'm saying. That's how invested we was to the city and to the brand, and just you know what I'm saying, just making sure that we're here.
And I would say, no one said this specifically, but reading between the lines with conversations that local restaurants had with me, I would say that the fear of your hustle probably led to some of the conversations that they had with council members, because
We're coming.
but you guys are 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just 6 months out of the year.
Right.
You know, so when XYZ restaurant, you know, every time they turn around, there's Fat Boy Q.
Right.
You know, in the parking lot here, in the parking lot there. When they go to Ashland, they're over there. Man, these guys, you know,
Right.
I can't sell a sandwich at my place, and these guys have 17 people waiting in line. So
Right.
I would venture to say that's probably what led to the conversations with us. I just want you to understand, though, that it wasn't on anybody's radar to make this prohibitive.
Right.
It was not, it's certainly not punitive. We just wanted to make sure that there was some level of balance, you know, because their argument to us is, well, they don't have to pay property taxes,
Right.
and, you know, they've got mobile units, so they're not paying the utility fee and this and that and the other.
Right.
But to your point and Ms. Cleary's
Right.
point, you know, you're filling the water to your spot, or
Right.
to your truck, probably from your home, you know,
Right.
so.
From a home, and like I say, also just you know what I'm saying, with food trucks, we try to be very community oriented because we know it's other small businesses out there like us. So you know, whenever the farmers market is going, you know, we're selling street corn. We're buying our corn from the farmers market. You know what I'm saying? I got to fill my propane tank. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to BC Tool Rental. You know, I need some beer to put in my barbecue sauce. I'm heading down to Granny's because those are my people. You know what I mean? And it's just like circulating that dollar to build a real sense of community.
Right.
And just like I said, I just want, like, that was just mainly what I was wanting, was just, you know, we're always talking about economic growth and just what's best for the city. Then one thing that I was very frustrated with was the purchase of the bar on 3rd in Ironton. The best bar in Ironton, like I just don't see how that was a positive move forward for the city to shut down a bar, and then just from what I hear, it's going to be turned into storage. You know, giving the residents, you know, some recreational activities to do to bring some of that new life into our city. Like within this past year, you know, like I said, as a city, we're competing with other surrounding areas. You know, Ashland, they opened 3 really, really nice spots that I find myself on a Saturday night, like, hey, who wants to be my designated driver, because everything's popping over in Ashland. And as an Irontonian, you know, that kind of hurts me, you know what I mean? Like I would love to be able to spend those dollars that I make in Ashland or in Greenup or even in Ironton, just to bring that money back here and spend it with other small business owners.
Well, that was, and I'll wrap up. I know Nate's got something for you. Just again, let me wrap up by saying thank you for investing in Ironton. We know that you could have chosen any place else. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Roach, thank you for coming up and speaking with us today. I appreciate it. And thank you for being a community partner and everything you do in our community.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. We could use more people like you. So I just wanted to touch on a few things. The building on 3rd Street that you were talking about, that wasn't owned by the city. That was owned by a private person.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't shut down by the city either.
Right. And
that was sold to the county for Board of Elections storage. So that had nothing really to do with the city.
Yeah,
as far
but
as
it
that
just,
goes.
I'm sure the city didn't go in there and make a proposal, or I don't know how that process really played out, but it's just, to me, like, I don't know, like, wasn't there somewhere else?
Well, what I do want to touch on is one thing we have done as a council is establish a economic development fund for the mayor to be able to use, and he has used for businesses to expand or locate in Ironton.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know of anybody that is looking to open a new business, please direct them to the mayor. If you're looking for a place, please feel free to reach out to the mayor, because we have made an effort to have funds available to help grow and assist small businesses in our community. And the third point, I think everybody does recognize that there is a lack of commercial areas for us to have businesses located. You know, your example with the brewery, you know, when Tipton's is in Ashland, I mean, you know, it breaks your heart, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to get the Economic Development Fund established. And we're also working with other community interests to have additional commercial development in that gateway area. The city wants to partner to be able to expand more commercial areas and hopefully get some of those downtown buildings available too. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Mr. Roach, for one, I want to state that I appreciate your guys' passion. I've bought some of your fundraisers for the high school. That's great. You guys are doing well and you're giving back. That's an Ironton in my
Right.
book. You know, I think you guys really, care about our community, and I appreciate that. I'm going to kind of rehash what Nate said, is I want to make sure that you guys know about the Economic Development Fund, because that is designed to help people bring business to our community. We've discussed that. I don't necessarily, I'm not 100% sure on the stipulations, but I do know there's money there to help businesses, come in, or brick and mortar. If you guys want to set up brick and mortar, plus your food truck, there's funds there to help. I have one question about the Dragonfly. What was the reason that they didn't?
It was the building, and then from what I understand, what they was going to have to pay for the building, but also what the building needed for it to be able to do what they needed to do. Gotcha. So whatever that case may be, they end up finding it in downtown Russell at the old train station. That worked out better for them.
I really do hate to hear that, because that sounds like something that would go great downtown. Now, one thing I do want to make you aware of is the DORA initiative. Have you heard of DORA? Yeah. Okay, so we've passed that. That's going to go in place. Mary, do we have a date?
We haven't passed it. The engineers are certifying the acreage.
Okay.
on it, for the whole entire,
Okay.
and then as soon as we have that ready, application comes. Pass.
So hopefully the door initiative will help you guys, you know. And like I said, I wasn't super involved, but I do know the council, when this was coming up, it wasn't directed at anybody. It was, how can we make this fair? Because we don't want to run food trucks off.
Right.
We don't want to do this. We don't want them leaving over this, but
Right.
we also, it's, like
Right.
I say, it's kind of a.
Right, I figured like,
You know what I'm saying?
like going into county to county, like it's still new. Everybody's almost getting new ordinances together, but just whenever I had initially heard it, because I hadn't read anything, all I wanted to do, which you guys had already clarified, was just suggest that, somebody can come in and do business for a day or like a 1 to 3 day event without like raking their pockets, you know what I mean? But because.
I think, if you've got a date in mind, like, I don't know, but I've actually talked to Mike a little earlier. But I was thinking that we had something in place a long time ago. But I think it's written out, but I think it just needs to be put on the agenda and voted on for smaller timelines, like
Okay.
weekend or day passes, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I'd be happy to sponsor that if it's not.
Yeah.
Well,
There.
and just kind of everyone's kind of explained like the intentions of it. I think, we were thinking $300 is, that's, but we're not
Right.
anticipating a $3,000 fire suppression system that would
Right.
come with that. That's where
Right.
I think that's probably caused a lot of the
Yeah,
issue.
that was the biggest thing, but also, like I said, with the ordinances with that, it's like it was already coming down our pipe anyways, like fire suppression in Kentucky and West Virginia, which us being down here operating in that. Ohio hadn't been, but like I said, with the food truck business, things are almost changing month to month. So, like I said, we're in it for the long run, so that was something that we knew we was going to have to look forward to doing. It still doesn't make your pockets feel any better, but like I said, we're committed. So that was something we kind of been planning for.
Another thing I want to make we've had some meetings and some people coming to meetings talking about wanting to invest in downtown.
Mhm.
So, we're here. We want you making money off of some entertainment we can have down here.
Yeah.
We want things going on down here.
Right.
We want Mrs. Clary's festival to have. We want things to be
Right.
down here. So we're here to help. We're here to help however we can. Hopefully, the people that have came and addressed council saying they want to set up shop
Mhm.
in town will, and I think that makes everybody happy. Even if it is another food truck, I think competition breeds excellence. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, to me, it's not even really competition. It's just a sense of community. Like I'd like to have, if we could have like a food truck park where we could just, put like 6 trucks. My truck being one of them, I would line 5. Side by side with 5 other trucks. Wednesday through Saturday, and days like today or throughout the summer. Some live music that can make Ironton a much more attractive place almost overnight, as opposed to having to do a bunch of ordinances and stuff for commercial properties and, renovating and different things like that. You get some people say, hey, you know what, Ironton, they got a food truck park. We can come from here or there and set up on this Wednesday or this Saturday or whatever,
Could you be available to come to the strategic planning and industrial commercial meeting that we've invited Mrs. Clary to?
When's that?
I mean, we
haven't
haven't
set
planned
it
it
yet.
yet, but because, you're throwing out some ideas that I can get behind. And the industry probably better than anybody in the room, so.
It's only been a year, though.
Well, I mean, you've got
Right.
connections in the
Right.
industry, so I'd like to see this stuff kind of happen, Mr. Mayor.
Just real quick, this is the first I've heard of Firefly. I didn't know anything about it, and the irony and also the sadness of the fact that Greenup County's been dry for a million years, and they just
Yeah.
went wet a year ago, and they
Got a brewery.
snuck a brewery from us. That's painful to me. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And I spoke to Abby Kleinman about a year ago about Food Truck Fest. Reynoldsburg, clear near where I used to live, had Food Truck Fest every year, and so I think something like that would be great.
Last thing I want to we're trying to get together Memorial Day weekend, pickleball tournament. So down at the new pickleball court, so maybe,
Okay.
maybe we could sell some pickleball or some.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
But, I'm gonna get a hold of you, because as soon as we set this meeting up, I'd really like to hear your guys' opinions
All
on this,
right.
because I'd like to start moving forward with some of these ideas that you guys have.
Absolutely. One last thing, April 20th is our birthday, and we're collaborating with Granny's, and we're doing a hog roast, giving away a whole hog. So you guys should come down and be a part of that festivity of the community.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on this participation?
Hey everybody,
All right. How are you?
good. I'm Aaron Murphy. I live at 704 South 6th Street, Ironton. I'm the owner of Tacos and Friends family food truck, and that is what it is. It's a family food truck. It's operated by me and my wife, and it's my only source of income. I left my job as a construction worker to pursue a passion in food, and I did that with a food truck because of obviously the overhead and everything. It's a bit easier to break into food with a food truck, but we are not a brick and mortar. And I could drive to Lake Erie tomorrow and sell my tacos. I could come to any event at any location and sell you food out of a licensed unit. So we're not, I understand that you have people that own brick and mortar restaurants here, and they are feeling like we're taken away from them. And I don't feel like that's true. I feel like we meet a certain need and demand. Like if you're gonna go see a concert at the Tuesday night series in downtown Ironton, you're not gonna go sit in the depot and order a filet while you're there supposed to be seeing a concert. That's a great place for food trucks to set up. And you've got that Shake Shack down there too. That's awesome. I'm sure they benefit from that. But we're different. It's a different business. And I feel like the fee is a little high. I haven't come across that. I've operated in 6 different counties in 2 states. I haven't come across this yet. I feel like maybe for the first year, a lower rate, and maybe stair step your way up to $250. Also with that ordinance, I don't have a fire suppression system in my food truck. In Kentucky, I don't have to have one because I don't have oil fryers. The fire department has told me that I have to have one because I have range burners, 4 open flames under a hood vent, right? So I don't have the money to pay for that by May 8th. So unless you all gave me some time, maybe I could go ahead and pay the fee and just say, hey, by the end of the year, when I get through county fair season, I'll definitely have enough money to make that upgrade to make my truck safe and up to code for Ironton. But if you all come find me when I'm set up at Murphy's on May 10th, I'm gonna have to close my truck down, go back to work, and it'd probably be a year before I was open again. And that's the reality of it. That's what I'm facing as a citizen of Ironton. That's what I'm looking at. So it impacts me greatly. So I wanted to come here and talk about it today.
Okay, I appreciate your interest and appreciate what you're doing. That takes guts to go out and leave a job and pursue a passion, right? I've always wanted this. Like I wanted to do, I think I fixed a mean chicken Alfredo. My kids will tell you that.
An Italian truck would be cool.
See,
it'd be unique.
I don't really, I don't have it in me right now. Maybe in the future I'll pursue that, but I don't. But one thing I do want to, I want to repeat this is, that's why we started the Economic Development Fund, was for business owners.
I've never even heard of this.
So I
plan on getting it done at Little's here in Ironton.
Right.
And those tax dollars from that service, about $3,000, go right back into Ironton. I set up mostly in Ironton, so you all are getting my payroll taxes. I buy most of my stuff here. I'm generating, revenue for you all, just operating my business. So I just want the council to be willing to work with the business owners. Like, I don't think anybody is going to come for a one-day event and pay that. You couldn't sell enough elephant ears, barbecue sandwiches, anything to make up right out the door a $300 loss in a day. Maybe a 2-day event. Maybe you all should do. I think everyone's beat this horse now, but have a tiered system. If I'm coming for a 2-day event, $35. If I go to Green Up for 3 days, it's $60, $20 a day, and they don't care. I mean, you have to have some stuff, but that fee exists because my plumbing is up to code for Ohio, my primary location of business. My plumbing is not up to code in Kentucky, but they are okay with that. They understand how the business works, so they have you just pay a small fee for setting up, and it goes to their county. But if Ironton had something like that, that I think that anyone would be willing to work with that.
I totally agree. Like, I'd be willing to sponsor something to put on the next agenda to have the 1 day and, the weekend festival at a lower rate. I totally agree.
And I want to support our fire department too. I mean, that's great that that's going to getting better gear for them and everything. Like, I'm not against that at all, but I'm just asking, could you please work with me, like making sure my truck's up to speed? Like, if it,
I think that's what the economic, like Mr. Klein said earlier, I think that's what the economic development fund is there for. I think that's what we all envisioned happening with it was to help foster businesses coming into town, and partner.
And well, I grew up working, like living at fairs and festivals. My stepfather owns Studimo. It's a production company. He sets up stages, lights, PA, all over the United States. And everywhere you go, every event ever has 20 really good food vendors, So I think to be welcoming to businesses, to opportunity in the future for the city and for the people, like, I think that we need to look at that and change.
I agree.
Like,
and
make adjustments.
There's
I think
nothing in place for one.
I think a food truck food court would go over famously here. Also, you put up a little stick stage, a little bit of electricity. Every food truck pays a small fee to set up each day, a utility fee. If the city owned that, it would go straight to the city. I mean, if a person, or if,
I would agree. And like I said, I don't know that anybody up here, and even Craig is against setting up a short-term, whatever it is, the short-term, permit. So I think we're on agreement there. And I think that can, like I said earlier, I think that can be done fairly quickly. So,
okay.
But I also want to refer you to the mayor maybe later about the economic development fee, or not economic development fund, I'm sorry, because that's what it's, I think the purpose of it is to help foster businesses. Jared?
And if you can, when we figure out the time for this joint meeting, I'd like you to come too and share some of these ideas.
Yeah, I'd love to.
And everybody, I want, bring some shirts, because I want to buy a couple. Okay. You're going to have to get some bigger ones though, but I want a shirt. I want a couple of these shirts. So, do you guys sell shirts too? Yeah. All right, how much are they?
25.
All right. How much are your shirts?
24.
Anybody? We've got an auctioneer in the house right here. All right, sounds good.
Since you're bringing big ones, bring me some too.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Do we have any other audience participation?
Hello, so I'm Ricky Young. I live at 2438 South 5th Street, right across from Granny's, and I work at Granny's. And just want to say how proud we are, really, of Aaron and D'Angelo and Amanda and everyone who brings any new business to the town, of course. So when the vault opened up, we were a huge supporter of the vault. My family, I made sure we bought our gifts there for any time that we could. When Fat Boy Q wanted to launch for the first time ever, they asked if they could set up at our event. And thank you, Sam, by the way. He let us set up the event. And what we try to do is we don't charge anybody to set up. We just try to give everybody an opportunity to sell their new stuff, new product, and to brag them up. You know, D'Angelo and Aaron, I think, and everyone will tell you the biggest thing we told them is, man, we're so proud of you. You're an entrepreneur. And we want them to open a brick and mortar here. So, you know, I know you guys are on the same page about supporting the food trucks and figuring out the rates. I wanted to say that. I wore my Dragonfly shirt today to support Dragonfly, of course. So I know you guys want new business here. And we, like Coons Creative, you know, they just opened across from Wendy's. Their first setup ever was with us. Their biggest account is with us. You know, we want to keep all the money in the city too. So we're down for that. The other reason I'm here is we don't want the Lawrence County Jail at the Lombard location. I'm sure you've heard this. We think there's better locations. It's in a neighborhood community. It's next to a nursing home that my wife is the nurse practitioner at, and the residents there don't really want it there. And I couldn't imagine being that old and wanting to have even a super safe facility next to where I lived. I just couldn't. And I don't want a kid coming out their front door and riding their bike around the jail like that's their block. And so April 30th, we're inviting, we don't own the Lombard, but we're inviting anybody who just wants to show up randomly to a play day. Bring your bikes, bring your basketballs, bring your picnic basket, man, because we're not going to have the jail go there. And I just wanted to say that. Thanks for listening.
First of all, Granny's has been a staple of business in Ironton for what? I saw a shirt a long
76
time ago.
years.
It was like 50-year anniversary.
1946.
So thank you guys for that, for sticking with Ironton. For that.
Thanks. We love it here.
We appreciate you guys for that. Secondly, like I said, I think we want to see, and we're happy that you guys are passionate about this and wanting to see people do well.
Yeah.
I think that's what everybody wants. So.
When we drive down 3rd Street to go to the bank and do banking and business, me and my father-in-law, all the time, that's my buddy. We drive down the street and we think, gosh, man, we want to fill these buildings. You know, we're never thinking, gosh, we want to be the big deal. You know, It's not that. We want the whole city to prosper. So that's what it's about. Yeah, so it's nice for the small businesses, and I really came here today to support my food truck family and new business, but I had to bring up the Lombard jail, or the Lawrence County Jail at Lombard. So.
I think we've all spoken about that, and I think we all agree.
Yeah, I've spoke with Sam on the jail, on the food, and thanks for supporting us, but we just don't want the jail in the community. That's it, not there.
So hopefully, like I said, I think council will support it, but I think the mayor is trying his best to work with the county. Like I said, I wish council could work with the county on this but they're the mayor's delegated to work with that, and I think he's doing a good job, and they're trying to find a solution for that jail, and I hope for everybody's sake that we do find a good solution that is not.
We'll come out April 30th, get you a hot dog, bring you a basket. All right, thanks.
Sounds good.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other audience participation? All right, moving on to communications, there are none. Reports, there are none. Mary, are you going for miscellaneous or?
Yeah, we will now since.
Okay, my bad.
It's okay.
Moving on to ordinances, Marta, would you please give ordinance 2221 first reading, please?
Dedicating a portion of Washington Street between 8th Street and 9th Street in the city of Ironton, first reading.
I'd like to make a motion to table ordinance 2221.
I'll second. Discussion. Are we able to get that, or our solicitors going to have that finalized before the next meeting because Don Taylor, we'd have to
I think we're going to start from scratch.
start from scratch, so it's going to be a brand new ordinance? Okay, I'll second that, or who second? I did. Mike? We have a motion by Nate, a second by Mike to table ordinance 2221. Roll call, please.
Cleary.
Aye.
Hany.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Ordinance 2221 has been tabled. Moving on to ordinance 2222. Marta, would you please give that first reading?
Authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract with Ironton Metropolitan Housing Authority and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Bob?
Yeah, I'd like to first say that, that this ordinance has got a favorable recommendation from the Finance Committee. I'd like to make a motion, we suspend the rules and give 2222 second and third reading by title only.
Jacob?
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Bob, a second by Jacob. Roll call, please, Marta.
Cleary.
Aye.
Hany.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Marta, would you please give ordinance 2222 second and third reading by title only?
Authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract with Ironton Metropolitan Housing Authority and declaring an emergency. Second reading. Authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract with Ironton Metropolitan Housing Authority and declaring an emergency. Third reading.
Bob?
Make a motion to adopt ordinance 2222.
Second.
Jacob, Chris, or Mike? Jacob, Marta? Roll call, please.
Cleary.
Aye.
Hany.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Perry.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Ordinance 2222 has been adopted. On to resolutions, there are none. Miscellaneous, Mayor?
I need 2 more strategic planning meetings that need to be separate.
2 more?
One for the zoning consultants to come in and speak with us. And the other one is a meeting with solid waste to discuss a future compost and recycling drop-off service.
Jacob?
I will get with Craig and Mike and you and find an appropriate time to call those meetings.
They should be separate unless we're gonna spend 3 or 4 hours in here.
Yeah, we'll break them up for sure.
So one is just regarding the solid waste, right?
Yeah, and then the other one, is for zoning, the consulting group out of Cincinnati. That we spoke about, finally got in touch with it.
So Jacob, you got your hands full.
I know,
on
yeah.
strategic planning. All right. Anything else, Mayor?
No.
Got signed up for miscellaneous. I wanted to give an attaboy or commendation to the mayor and to the chief. Ray and Witt reached out to me about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, about a property at 1003 Latonia. It's the alley, you would see it in the alley between 10th and 11th Street. The yard was in horrible disarray. I drove through it. I knew exactly which yard it was right away, but I couldn't see an address on the front of the house, which maybe that's an issue in and of itself. But since she reached out to me, she told me today that police have been there twice and somebody has been hauling away all the stuff, knocking down the grass, taking care of it. So she wanted me to give thanks to the mayor, to the chief. I'll mention that in the council.
Good job. Thank you. Nate?
Miscellaneous, thanks for reaching out to the zoning consultants. I'm hoping that works out. Did you get a good vibe from them, or?
Did you get a good vibe?
Terry, did you get a good vibe from them? Okay, good, thank you. All right, good. Because I kind of did a little homework. I want to make sure I was a good fit. Okay. The next is, I know the chief said we're still a couple officers short. Do we have any updates on getting those filled? And do we have any updates on public safety officer filling?
Well, the public safety, well, we need to get the vacancies filled first for just what we need.
We're trying to move forward on getting those 2 positions filled. However, right now I only have 1 candidate, and that candidate is in the police academy, will not graduate until June or July, so we're trying to move forward with that. We have advertised, I think, the last, I'll say, 4 to 5 months. That's our applicant.
Okay.
We have one person.
Tell them about what we're establishing.
What we're trying to do and what we're wanting to move forward with, and this is a little bit more complicated than what we thought it was gonna be, just going by CERB law and state law, FOP contract. What we're trying to move forward with is and we have never tried this, and we have never had this. In all the years I've been here, Bob may remember something that I don't, but what we're trying to move forward with is what we're calling a cadet program. We do have some funding sources where we can get, if we can hire somebody and send them to an academy, where it wouldn't cost us to send them on to their schooling. However, we do still have to pay those people's salary while they're in school at a discounted rate. Certain benefits they won't get until they become full-time. We're trying to move forward with that.
Does the fire department already do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, because.
I'd be on board with that.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But in the interest of transparency, I just want to make everyone aware that the police academy is not the fire academy. Fire academy is 6 weeks. Police academy can go anywhere from 6 months to 10 months. So I forget, right off the top of my head, it's like 940 hours, credit hours or whatever. Plus there's like 5 different kind of physical skill levels. And then you only get 2 shots to pass that state test. So if you don't pass it the second time, then you're not getting a certificate. You have to do the whole academy again.
Okay.
So it's not a walk. It's not a cakewalk.
No,
So-
I think what it meant was we didn't offer this to anyone before, so they were maybe steered away because they didn't have the police academy under their belt.
Yeah, and we've not had a police academy in this county for, I'm gonna say, the last 5 to 7 years, maybe longer than that. We do have an academy in Scioto County. We do have one in Gallia County. We also have available to us PATA, which is in London, Ohio. That's Ohio Police Officer Training Academy. That's the main state academy. And then we also, State Ohio Highway Patrol offers a academy that's also a PATA certified. They have a trooper academy, then they have the PATA certified academy where you can, and there is a difference. I know everybody doesn't think there is, but there is. So there is a difference on, now whether they've combined them since COVID, I'm not sure how they're doing that now, but you know, right now we're trying to move forward with that because, to be absolutely honest with you, no one wants to be a policeman. Everybody wants to be a fireman, everybody wants to be a policeman, so we're having a hard time. And
So-
it's not just us, it's nationwide.
So no progress into getting the public safety officer
Well,
assigned?
we're trying to move forward with this cadet we've got right now. He's in the
Okay.
academy, be out in June. If he passes his test, yeah, we're moving forward, it's
Okay.
just a slow pace.
Okay.
Right now, we're just pulling officers off the street and trying to get done, like Mr. Perry said, and, you know, yeah, when we get them, we're just trying to get them there, you
It's
know.
worth a while because you have an ex-police officer working code enforcement right now, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're trying to move forward with all that, but you know, because we are a city and we are not a village, the first step is civil service. We have to go through civil service. Then we have to get an MOU with the union. Then we can move forward. This young man appears to be an excellent candidate. He's already done his panel interview, interview with the mayor and myself. He is in the academy. He is very interested and says that he does not want to relocate to any other place since his family is from Lawrence County.
Okay.
So it's very promising for that one at this particular point.
One of the things, I got a email from the Ohio Municipal League. They're having a webinar on April 28th from 11 to 12. It's on a nuisance abatement. It's 1 hour. It says Ohio's nuisance abatement law empowers municipalities to address properties with chronic code violations as well as properties with chronic criminal activity. Okay, and they're going to give an overview of Ohio nuisance abatement law and a framework for its practical application in municipalities of any size. John, I'm going to forward that to you. I would like for us to participate in that, if we could expense that out of the city council's fund. I'd like to make sure that the city is putting all ordinances in place on par with the state and other municipalities to address chronic nuisance properties. And I'd like to invite either chief or a designee, and maybe Mark or somebody from the mayor's And John, if you could participate in that also.
I'm just
and
gonna
record it.
don't
I'm gonna
forget.
I'll forward the email to you guys.
Yeah, I think Joe definitely needs to be in on that, as well as myself. I have court that day.
Okay.
But if I'm not done by then, I would definitely have another officer there to take care of that.
Thank you. And a 5-minute executive 5 minutes. Executive session, whenever.
Chief, can you update us on the K-9 unit?
Our K-9, we love him. Officer Akers actually got back Thursday. He's been in training 35 days. He's got his state certification. Mayor got the high five Paul lift yesterday when he swore him in, and he's on the road. He's on the road. Yeah, he's a beautiful animal. He's a puppy, and we look forward to great things out of Ike. Not the name I picked. I want him to be Tank, but the trainers said Ike. Yeah, I want him. Aren't tanks. You know what I'm saying? I want a tank, but we got Ike. But pick and choose your battles.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Mayor, do we need to do anything this year with the MS4 program to put out flyers, information pamphlets?
We're going to start the committee back up because we have to replace and add to that board. We're going to have those first meetings in May. Towards the end of May.
Okay.
Because we've just now hired the environmental compliance, and he's kind of getting his feet wet with a lot of things right now.
Do you remember how we sent that out last year? Was
on the
it through the water?
website.
Was it through the water bill, or was it
It's
through?
on the website, and then we had a lot of, mostly John would just go after the people who were doing it incorrectly.
And just put door hangers on there, and
Yeah.
if they couldn't get all of them? Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Nate?
Make a motion to go to executive session and discuss personnel and property with the mayor. only.
Council and mayor only?
Yeah.
No action followed?
No action to follow. 5 minutes.
Motion.
I'll second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Cleary.
No.
Amy. Pop.
Aye.
Klein.
Do you need
Aye.
6?
Harry.
Aye.
Please?
Aye.
Does it take 6?